guys. I hope you had a lovely Christmas and a Happy New Year to all of you. Wishing you all the best for 2017. So I've been MIA for a little bit. I had a really bad head cold, and instead of you listening to me rasping into the phone, I said I'd wait and let it pass. So I'm back, feeling a lot better, and I thought tonight I'd read some bits out of the noticeably stouter Book of General Ignorance, now 26% more ignorant, which was written by John Lloyd and John Mitchinson. I love all these kind of books. I think they're interesting, but sort of witty and funny as well. So I'm just going to pick and choose a few bits out of it that might be fun. I hope you enjoy, and I hope it helps you get some sleep. So first of all, I'm going to read the foreword, which Stephen Fry wrote. I have to say I'm a big Stephen Fry fan. People sometimes accuse me of knowing a lot. Stephen, they say, accusingly, you know a lot. This is a bit like telling a person who has a few grains of sand clinging to him that he owns much sand. When you consider the vast amounts of sand there is in the world, such a person is, to all intents and purposes, sandless. We are all sandless. We are all ignorant. There are beaches and deserts and dunes of knowledge whose existence we have never even guessed at, let alone visited. It's the ones who think they know what there is to be known that we have to look out for. All is explained in this text. There is nothing else you need to know, they tell us. For thousands of years we put up with this kind of thing. Those who said, hang on, I think we might be ignorant, let's see, were made to drink poison, or had their eyes put out, their bowels drawn out through their bodies. We are perhaps now more in danger of thinking we know everything than we were even in those dark times of religious superstition, if indeed they have gone away. Today we have the whole store of human knowledge a mouse click away, which is all very fine and dandy, but it's in danger of becoming just another sacred text. What we need is a treasure house, not of knowledge, but of ignorance. Something that gives not answers but questions. Something that shines light, not on already garish facts, but into the dark, damp corners of ignorance. And the volume you have in your hands is just a blazing torch which can help us embark upon the journey of dumbing up. Read it wisely, little one, for the power of ignorance is great. So that's the foreword. So, for any of you that have read this book, you'll know that there's sort of lots of topics in it that are all explained, and it gives sort of a passage about each topic, so I'm just going to pick and choose a few. But to give you a little bit of background about this book first, the company behind BBC Two's QI, the website QI.com, and the book that I'm holding in my hand now was formed a decade ago. The world was a very different place then. The dot-com boom had barely begun and the Twin Towers were still standing. There were no British or American troops dying in Afghanistan and Iraq, and the banks were as sturdy as the Bank of England. But one aspect of the world hasn't changed much. The moneybags who run the culture still seem to think we're all a bit thick. Television, magazines and newspapers pump out stuff that interests practically no one, and as a result they're all going steadily broke. Man cannot live by celebrity dancing alone. The principle behind QI is that everything is interesting if looked at closely enough, for long enough, or from the right angle. Along with that goes the idea that if a thing cannot be explained to an intelligent 12-year-old, then it is either wrong or not very well explained. It's our view that the people who watch QI are just as intelligent as the people who make it, even if they don't know as much, well, who does, as the national treasure who chairs it. And all of us, host, production team, panellists, studio audience, elves, believe that it's perfectly possible to be funny without also being nasty. As a result of those simple theories, the programme has been a runaway success on BBC Two, where it consistently beats much better publicised, supposedly trendier programmes in the ratings, and is watched by more young people than anything else on the channel. So, that's just a little bit of background. How many wives did Henry VIII have? We make it 2, or 4 if you're a Catholic. Henry's fourth marriage of Anne of Cleves was annulled. This is very different from divorce. Legally, it means the marriage never took place. There were 2 grounds for the annulment. Anne and Henry never consummated the marriage. That is, they never had intercourse. Refusal or inability to consummate a marriage is still grounds for annulment today. In addition, Anne was already betrothed to Francis, Duke of Lorraine, when she married Henry. At that time, the formal act of betrothal was a legal bar to marrying someone else. All parties agreed that no legal marriage had taken place, so that leaves 5. The Pope declared Henry's second marriage to Anne Boleyn illegal because the king was still married to his first wife, Catherine of Aragon. Henry, as head of the new Church of England, declared in turn that his first marriage was invalid on the legal grounds that a man could not sleep with his brother's widow. The king cited the Old Testament, which he claimed as God's law, whether the Pope liked it or not. Depending on whether you believe the Pope or the king, this brings it down to either 4 or 3 marriages. Henry annulled his marriage to Anne Boleyn just before he had her executed for adultery. This was somewhat illogical. If the marriage had never existed, Anne could hardly be accused of betraying it. He did the same with his 5th wife, Catherine Howard. All the evidence suggests that she was unfaithful to him before and during their marriage. This time, Henry passed a special act, making it treasonable for a queen to commit adultery. Once again, he also had the marriage annulled. So that makes 4 annulments and only 2 incontestable legal marriages. Apart from Henry's last wife, Catherine Parr, who outlived him, the lady who got off lightest was Anne of Cleves. After their annulment, the king showered her with gifts and the official title of beloved sister. She visited court often, swapping cooks, recipes, and household gadgets with the man who had never been her husband. How many nostrils have you got? 4. 2 you can see and 2 you can't. This discovery came from observing how fish breathe. Fish get their oxygen from water. Most of them have 2 pairs of nostrils, a forward-facing set for letting water in, and a pair of exhaust pipes for letting it out again. The question is, if humans evolved from fishes, where did the other pair of nostrils go? The answer is that they migrated back inside the head to become internal nostrils. These connect to the throat and are what allow us to breathe through our noses. To do this, they somehow had to work their way back through the teeth. This sounds unlikely, but scientists in China and Sweden have recently found a fish, which is a 395 million year old fossil, that shows this process at its halfway stage. The fish has 2 nostril-like holes between its front teeth. I can't pronounce this, but whatever it is a direct ancestor of land animals, able to breathe in both air and water. One set of nostrils allowed it to lie in the shallows and eat, while the other poked out of the water a bit like a crocodile's. Similar gaps between the teeth can also be seen at an early stage of the human embryo. When they fail to join up, the result is a cleft palate. So one ancient fish explains two ancient human mysteries. The most recent research on noses, incidentally, shows that we use each of our external nostrils to detect different smells, breathing different amounts of air into each to create a kind of a nasal stereo. Where is the highest mountain? It's on Mars. The giant volcano Mount Olympus, or Olympus Mons in Latin, is the highest mountain in the solar system and in the known universe. What's the name of the tallest mountain in the world? Mauna Kea, the highest point on the island of Hawaii. It's about 3/4 of a mile taller than Mount Everest. As far as mountains are concerned, the current convention is that highest means measured from sea level to summit. Tallest means measured from the bottom of the mountain to the top. So while Mount Everest is the highest mountain in the world, it is not the tallest. What is the largest living thing? It's a mushroom, and it's not even a particularly rare one. You've probably got the honey fungus in your garden, growing in a dead tree stump. For your sake, let's hope it doesn't reach the size of the largest recorded specimen. In Malheur National Forest in Oregon, it covers 890 hectares and is between 2,000 and 8,000 years old. Most of it is underground in the form of a massive mat of tentacle-like white mycelia. These spread along tree roots, killing the trees and peeping up through the soil occasionally as innocent-looking clumps of honey mushrooms. What's the biggest thing a blue whale can swallow? A very large mushroom. B, a small family car. C, a grapefruit. Or D, a sailor. And the answer is a grapefruit. Quite interestingly, a blue whale's throat is almost exactly the same diameter as its belly button, which is about the size of a side plate, but a little smaller than its eardrum, which is more than the size of a dinner plate. For 8 months of the year, blue whales eat virtually nothing, but during the summer they feed almost continuously, scooping up 3 tons of food every day. As you can remember from biology lessons, their diet consists of tiny shrimp-like crustaceans called krill, which slip down a treat. Krill come conveniently served in huge swarms that can weigh over 100,000 tons. The narrow gauge of a blue whale's throat means that it couldn't have swallowed Jonah. The only whale with a throat wide enough to swallow a person is the sperm whale, and once inside, the intense acidity of the sperm whale's stomach juices would make survival impossible. Which bird lays the smallest egg for its size? The ostrich. Although it is the largest single cell in nature, an ostrich egg is less than 1.5% of the weight of the mother. A wren's egg, by comparison, is 13% of its weight. That's interesting. How long can a chicken live without its head? About 2 years. On September 10th, 1945, a plump young cockerel in had its head chopped off and lived. Incredibly, the axe had missed the jugular vein and left enough of the brainstem attached to the neck for him to survive, even thrive. Mike, as he was known, became a national celebrity, touring the country and featuring Time and Life magazines. His owner, Lloyd Olson, charged 25 cents for a chance to meet Mike the Headless Wonder Chicken in sideshows across the USA. Mike would appear with the dried chicken's head, purporting to be his own. In fact, the Olsons' cat had made off with the original. At the height of his fame, Mike was making $4,500 a month and was valued at $10,000. His success resulted in a wave of copycat chicken beheadings, although none of the unfortunate victims lived for more than a day or two. Mike was fed and watered using an eyedropper. In the 2 years after he lost his head, he put on nearly 6 pounds and spent his time happily preening and pecking for food with his neck. One person who knew Mike well commented he was a big fat chicken who didn't know he didn't have a head. Tragedy struck one night in a motel room in Phoenix, Arizona. Mike started to choke, and Lloyd Olson, to his horror, realised he'd left the eyedropper at the previous day's show. Unable to clear his airways, Mike choked to death. Mike remains a cult figure in Colorado, and every May since 1999, Fruita has marked his passing with the Mike the Headless Chicken Day. What has a 3-second memory? Not a goldfish for starters. Despite its status as a proverbial fact, a goldfish's memory isn't a few seconds long. Researched by the School of Psychology at the University of Plymouth in 2003 demonstrated beyond reasonable doubt that goldfish have a memory span of at least 3 months and can distinguish between different shapes, colours and sounds. They were trained to push a lever to earn a food reward, and when the lever was fixed to work only for an hour a day, the fish soon learned to activate it at the correct time. A number of similar studies have shown that farmed fish can easily be trained to feed at particular times and places in response to an audible signal. That's interesting because I had goldfish a few years ago, and when I would come into the room, or someone they knew, they'd swim up to the front of their tank. But if it was someone they didn't know, they used to hide under the bridge. And I knew that they were more clever than people thought. There was lots of other little things as well, but that was the most noticeable. What's the most dangerous animal that has ever lived? Half the human beings who have ever died, perhaps as many as 45 billion people, have been killed by female mosquitoes. The males only bite plants. Mosquitoes carry more than 100 potentially fatal diseases, including malaria, yellow fever, dengue fever, encephalitis, filariasis. My terrible pronouncing skills. Even today, they kill one person every 12 seconds. Amazingly, nobody had any idea that mosquitoes were dangerous until the end of the 19th century. In 1877, the British doctor Sir Patrick Manson, known as Mosquito Manson, proved that infantiasis was caused by mosquito bites. 17 years later, in 1894, it occurred to him that malaria might also be caused by mosquitoes. Let's see. as a result of different emotional states. If they happen to match the background, it's entirely coincidental. Chameleons change colour when frightened or picked up, or when they beat another chameleon in a fight. They change colour when a member of the opposite sex steps into view, and sometimes they change colour due to fluctuations in either light or temperature. That's funny. How many galaxies are visible to the naked eye? 5,000, 2 million, 10 billion. The answer is 4. Although from where you are sitting, you can only see 2. And one of those is the Milky Way, the one we're in. Given that there are estimated to be more than 100 billion galaxies in the universe, each containing between 10 and 100 billion stars, it's a bit disappointing. In total, only 4 galaxies are visible from Earth with the naked eye, only half of which can be seen at once, 2 from each hemisphere. In the northern hemisphere, you can see the Milky Way and Andromeda, M31, while in the southern hemisphere, you can see the large and small Magellanic Clouds. Some people with exceptional eyesight claim to be able to see more. M33 in Triangulum, M81 in Ursa Major, and M83 in Hydra, but it's very hard to prove. What man-made artifacts can be seen from the moon? Deduct 10 points if you said the Great Wall of China. No human artifacts at all can be seen from the moon with the naked eye. The idea that the Great Wall is the only man-made object to be seen from the moon is all pervasive, but it confuses the moon with space. Space is quite close. It starts about 100 kilometers, 60 miles from the Earth's surface. From there, many artificial objects are visible: motorways, ships on the sea, railways, cities, fields of crops, and even some individual buildings. However, at an altitude of only a few thousand miles after leaving the Earth's orbit, no man-made objects are visible at all. From the moon, even the continents are barely visible. Which of these are Chinese inventions? A. Glass, B. Rickshaws, C. Chop suey, and D. Fortune cookies. Chop suey. There are many fanciful stories about its American origin, but it is a Chinese dish. In E.N. Anderson's definitive The Food of China, 1988, chop suey is named as a dish local to Tuasan in southern Canton. They called it zap suey, which means miscellaneous scraps in Cantonese. Most of the early immigrants to California came from this region, hence its early appearance in America. Glass isn't Chinese. The earliest known glass artifacts are from ancient Egypt in 1350 BC. The earliest Chinese porcelain dates from Han Dynasty, 206 BC to 220 AD. Ancient China built a whole culture on porcelain, but they never got to grips with transparent glass. The rickshaw was invented by an American missionary who first used it to wheel his invalid wife through the streets of Yokohama in Japan in 1869. Fortune cookies are also American, though they were probably invented by a Japanese immigrant, Makoto Hagiwara, a landscape designer who created the Golden Gate Tea Room in San Francisco. He served small, sweet Japanese buns with thank you notes inside from about 1907 onwards. Restaurant owners in the city's Chinatown copied them, and the notes soon started to sell fortunes. But who's complaining? Chinese resourcefulness has given us the abacus, bells, brandy, the calendar, the compass, the crossbow, the decimal system, drilling for oil, fireworks, the fishing reel, the flamethrower, the flush toilet, gunpowder, the helicopter, the horse collar, the iron plough, the kite, lacquer, magic mirrors, matches, the mechanical clock, miniature hot air balloons, negative plumbers, sorry, I misread that to negative numbers. Apologies to any plumbers listening. Paper, parachutes, porcelain, printmaking, relief maps, rudders, seismographs, silk, stirrups, the suspension bridge, the umbrella, the water pump, and the wheelbarrow. And on that note, I think I'll call it a night. So if you found that interesting, I can read more from that book. You can let me know in the comments. Sweet dreams.